Analyst Charles Barkley was critical of DeMarcus Cousins' role in the hiring of new head coach George Karl. Barkley said, "I am totally disgusted with that. He hasn't done enough to deserve that type of power," accusing Cousins of getting in the way of the hiring. Well, Cousins responded to Barkley's comment saying, I don't really respect the guy, but at the same time, I don't really care what he thinks either." That's Charles being Charles. A lot of people don't really know the real story about it. I never really had anything to do with it in the first place. I wouldn't necessarily say he's anybody of an authority. I would just say he is very comfortable on the television. Well, that is true. He is very comfortable on the television. Stephen A., what's your reaction to this?
Well, my initial reaction is forgive me for bringing up my ethnicity, but as a black man, I'm very disgusted to see these guys. It's like black on black crime, for crying out loud. They both need to stop it as far as I'm concerned. I don't know DeMarcus Cousins as well. I know John Calipari, his coach, very well. I know a few people close to him well enough. In the case of Charles Barkley, he's a personal friend of mine who I love dearly. He called them immature at once upon a time last year and said he was having a bad influence on his teammates. That's where all of this started. DeMarcus Cousins, who grew up admiring Charles Barkley, took great offense to it, and from that standpoint has been very, very unforgiving. He has to understand in certain respects that Charles Barkley is a guy that believes in being honest and giving you tough love because he believes that when he does that, ultimately it will make you better. He reminisces about how Moses Malone once called him fat and out of shape, how Dr. J. Julius Erving once called him, or rather how he needed to dress better. I recall reading something on a Bleacher Report, I believe, a few months ago where it was highlighting that along with various other publications that had alluded to it. Charles Barkley sometimes doesn't say things the right way or that's politically correct or whatever the case may be. So what? I'm certainly not in any position to criticize him for that. But the one thing that I will say, if I'm DeMarcus Cousins, if you're Charles Barkley, it should be a conversation where you pick up the phone and you tell him directly or you tell him face to face, as opposed to him being somebody who looks up to you and admires you and then clicks on the TV one day and sees you going at him. I can understand how DeMarcus Cousins may be offended by something like that. But to just sit there and to say that you don't have any respect for a Hall of Famer, for one of the 50 greatest players to have ever played the game of basketball and what have you, considering the fact that you play for the Sacramento Kings, who seems allergic to winning, at least up to this point, rather. There are some things that you can learn from Barkley. I'm not defending Barkley, but I'm not defending DeMarcus Cousins either. Both of them have good points. Some of them may not have, but so many good points. But these guys going at it on a personal level, particularly DeMarcus Cousins, the way that he did, I consider it black on black crime, and I would appreciate it if they both would stop before they tick me off and I add a third person to the equation to shut it down.
Okay, I respect what you're saying, Stephen A. I'm just going to deal with a current player and an ex-star who's on television here. And I'm going to take DeMarcus Cousins' side in this one. I do respect his right to say he does not respect Charles. And again, obviously, Charles didn't pick up the phone and call DeMarcus and say, hey, I'm going to say this about you. Not that that's Charles' responsibility, but he didn't do that either. He has been after DeMarcus in several occasions. And on this occasion, Stephen A., from all I read and all I was told by people who know George, it was actually DeMarcus's two agents who had more of an issue with George than DeMarcus himself did. That they had had past differences that could have gotten in the way, past differences with George. But in the end, even they said, no, that's not operating here. We're fine with this. So I feel like DeMarcus once again got unfairly vilified for trying to sort of gum up the works, to stop this, to somehow interfere with the hiring of George Karl, when he was saying, I got nothing to do with that, and I'm open-minded to being coached by a great coach like George Karl. As you know, DeMarcus is his own man, and he has his own mind. And I believe that DeMarcus, that we're seeing this year, is maturing into his own man as we speak. And he is a man on the basketball court, as you know. so far averaging for the Kings 24 and 13 this year. And as you know, last night in the fourth quarter, I know it was just an exhibition game, he was pretty great last night. He went 4 for 4 in the fourth quarter and scored 9 points, and was another reason the West prevailed last night. So again, a lot of players, Stephen A., you know, they just sort of grin and bear Charles, and they just dismiss it or accept it as, oh, it's just Charles being Charles. But DeMarcus isn't built like that. He was being totally honest. And as you said about Kevin Durant, you love it when a guy just says, hey, I'm going to speak my heart, whether you like it or not. And DeMarcus spoke his heart about Charles Barkley, and you have to respect that.
Well, first of all, I wasn't in any way trying to disrespect DeMarcus Cousins. I recall saying that I think that he had some valid points. Not to mention the fact I think he's the best big man in the game, and he's far more intelligent than people give him credit for. They just act like he's somebody that stands on the court and wears a scowl. I saw his interview with Bill Simmons, for Grantland, and I was impressed by that as well. You hear a lot of great things about DeMarcus Cousins. I'm not talking about his character or anything like that. I'm just talking about going after Charles Barkley the way that he felt Charles Barkley went after him. At some point in time, I guess my philosophy, Skip, is this. If we're men, let's talk like men. If you got a problem, tell me what it is. If I got a problem with you, I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm not hard to find, and I don't think Barkley's hard to find. And all I'm saying is that whether it's Barkley who should call him or whether it's him who should call Barkley, if you've got no love and you got nothing to say for one another, then don't say it. But Charles Barkley is getting paid millions of dollars to go on the air and critique basketball players. TNT hired him to do that. It's not like he's just talking out of his mouth. And so for me, if you got a problem with him, talk to him man to man. Now, what comes from that comes from that. But I think what's really bothering me is the fact that once a young man, once a bit older, but neither of them have felt inclined to speak face-to-face, man-to-man with one another. And to me, that's on DeMarcus Cousins, because he says he has no words for him, because I know Barkley would speak to him.
Okay, so should Charles have called DeMarcus before he spoke out on the air?
Quickly, gentlemen, 30 seconds.
He should have called DeMarcus first. I agree with that. If he knew what he was going to say, yes.
Okay.
All right, we leave it right there. Again, a reminder, as we close, we will be in North Carolina Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday at UNC, Wednesday at Duke. We hope to see you there. If not, 10 a.m. Eastern right here on ESPN2. Have a great one, everyone.